Good morning. In today's class, let us discuss about types of friction. Now here, friction means that force which opposes the motion of body, the relative motion between the two bodies which are in contact to each other. Friction is divided into three types. One is the static friction. Other is the kinetic friction or dynamic friction, and other is the rolling friction. First, static friction. Static means if the body is in rest position, we say it as static. Here we see many bodies at rest position, such as almirahs, chairs, tables, books on the table, etc. These all are in rest position. But we cannot say that these bodies are having static friction. We can say a body is having static friction only when we apply the force on it. Now for example, I want to move the almirah. What I will do? I will push the almirah. That is, I am applying the force on the almirah. After applying the force also, almirah will not move. So even though I apply the external force, almirah is not moving means what? Some force is opposing the motion of almirah. Then that force only, that frictional force can be said to be static friction. So when the static friction comes into the role, when we apply the external force on the objects, if the body remains in the rest position, then we say that static friction is acting on that particular body. So the resistance encountered by such bodies after applying the external force also, if the bodies after applying external force also, if a body remains in rest position, we call it as static friction. Right? Such a static friction is independent of area of contact. So static friction totally depends upon the normal reaction force. Sorry, yes. So now Fs can be written as mu s n, where mu s proportionality constant we will say, or coefficient of static friction. Now next, kinetic friction. Now increase applying the force, external force. When you increase the external force, the body starts sliding on the surface. Body is sliding means body is coming into the motion. When body comes into the motion, its motion at certain extent or after certain time will be opposed by the frictional force. So that frictional force, we call it as kinetic or dynamic friction. Here, the frictional force which opposes the motion of the body here the body is in motion. For example, if we throw a ball on the ground or if we hit a football, what happens? It will be in motion up to certain extent. After certain extent, suddenly they stop. Means here the frictional force is opposing the motion of the body. Okay? So that resistance encountered by the sliding bodies, we call it as kinetic or dynamic friction. So now here, this kinetic friction also depends on normal reaction force, Fk proportional to N, Fk equal to mu k into N. Mu k, we call it as coefficient of kinetic friction. Right? Compared to the static friction, kinetic friction will be less. Okay? So Fk is less than Fs, I can say. So when body is in motion, the effect of frictional force will decrease. Right? Now next, rolling friction. So this rolling friction is, we see in case of rolling bodies like wheels, etc. So actually, this rolling friction is very less than kinetic friction and static friction. Right? So the resistance encountered by the rolling bodies, we call it as a rolling friction. So here the friction which, when we apply the external force also, if the body remains in the rest position, we call it as static friction. The resistance encountered by the sliding bodies or the bodies which are in motion, we call it as kinetic or dynamic friction. And the resistance encountered by the rolling bodies, we call it as rolling friction. And rolling friction will be least compared to kinetic and static friction. So Fr is equal to mu r into N, we can write, where mu r is the coefficient of rolling friction. Right? Now laws of rolling friction. One is rolling friction directly proportional to the normal reaction force. Rolling friction is inversely proportional to the radius of rolling body. So rolling friction can be written as proportional to N by R, or rolling friction is equal to mu R N by R. So these two are the laws of rolling friction. Directly proportional to the normal reaction force, inversely proportional to the radius of that particular rolling body. So this is about 3 types of friction. Right? Thank you.